Hi, it's Penny here, and this is going to be my book haul for the third quarter of 2025. So I give myself a book buying budget of $10 a week, which for a quarter ends up with about $120. I did in Q3 only spend $76 because I've been saving up for a Q4 purchase. So well done, me. But also I have 12 books here, and I think that means that my average spend was about $6 something per book, which is not bad, although some of these were definitely a lot less than that, and some of these were definitely a lot more. But anyway, let's talk about the books. So I've kind of grouped these by, I've got them in front of me here. I've kind of grouped them by the different places that I got them from. So firstly, we have The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. I love The Scorpio Races. I've read it before, and I've loved a lot of things by Maggie Stiefvater. Let's not talk about her latest release, because I didn't love that. But I've loved a lot of her things, including The Scorpio Races, even though it's a YA fantasy, and YA isn't always my favorite these days. But Maggie Stiefvater's writing, again, let's not talk about her latest release. Maggie Stiefvater's writing is just so beautiful and wonderful. This is a story about this place where every year these horses come out of the sea and they're very wild and dangerous. And then every year as well, they have a race with these horses. And we're following a couple of young people who really need to win the race and get the prize for different reasons. So this I got for $2 from a local charity shop, and I was very excited to find it on the shelf. Like a beautiful hardcover edition in quite good condition. Nice. Then I have a couple of books here from a local charity book sale thing that they do kind of regularly. I always think that the selection's not that great, but I also usually will buy a book or two, so I guess it's fine. I wouldn't want it to be too good because I would spend too much money. But both of these books only cost me $1. So firstly, we have Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. This is on my TBR, and weirdly, my library didn't seem to have a copy, which, I think that's weird because I thought this was kind of a classic, so I don't know. I know people always talk about this book when they talk about really sad books. And I think the idea is that we're following this guy with a really low IQ, but they give him this drug that improves his IQ. And kind of as he goes through that change, he realizes how badly people have been treating him in the past. And I think as well, the reason I wanted to read this physically is because I think the writing in the beginning is kind of less good and then gets more and more fancy as we go on. Anyway, this will be going on my TBR. Should I put these TBR ones in a different pile and we'll see how many we get at the end? This one will also be going on my TBR. This one is Full Fathom 5 by Max Gladstone. And you can see that it's an ex-library book. This one, I actually looked it up at my library and discovered that they had, I think it's a longer series, but they had kind of the first 5 books in the series, except not this one, which is the 3rd book. And I thought that's weird. And I actually went and asked at the library because I kind of thought, had somebody not returned this and it had found its way to the book sale. But no, they say they actually did cancel it, even though they don't normally cancel books randomly in the middle of the series. But they said it must have slipped through. Obviously, no one had been taking it out for a long time. So I'm going to try this one. I did find for this series that there are multiple reading orders suggested, and at least a couple of the reading orders I found suggested starting with this one. So I'm going to start with this one. I actually don't really know what it's about, but what I do know is that Max Gladstone is one of the authors of This Is How You Lose the Time War. So that's Max Gladstone and Amal El-Mutar. I've read things by Amal El-Mutar, but I haven't read anything else by Max Gladstone, so I think this is going to be it. Some kind of sci-fi, I guess. So this will be on my TBR. Okay, then let's do online purchases. And actually, this next book is the book that I spent the most on this month, and that is The Fog by Caroline B. Cooney. I have wanted to own this whole series. I've already had the 2nd and 3rd books in the trilogy, and I've never found this first book. And I also have these books on my reread project where I reread books I read 10 years ago. I've read this many times though. I think I originally read this when I was about 10 or 11. Let's check the release date to make sure that's feasible. 1989. Just feasible. This would have been a fairly new release when I was 10. I always remember we actually moved when I was 10 to a new town, and we went and signed up at the library, and I remember asking, how many books am I allowed to take out? And they said 25. And that library had like a teen section, and in the middle they just had this big cardboard box full of point thrillers. And so I just took maybe most of those 25 from that box, took them home and just like read through a whole bunch of them in a single day. And this one in particular is about this girl called Christina who lives with some other kids on this island, but when they get to kind of high school age, they go to the mainland and they board with this family and they go to school. But then the year that Christina starts, things are happening that are a little bit weird, a little bit crazy. This is a massive nostalgia read for me, and I am super excited to own kind of a matching set. I bought this from Thrift Books, and the actual price for the book wasn't that bad, but the shipping was pretty awful. I think if I bought anything from Thrift Books again, I would try and do combined shipping or something. I don't really know how that works on there because I think they are more like a marketplace. But anyway, this cost me too much money because of shipping. I'm not even going to tell you how much because it's kind of embarrassing that I was willing to do that. But also, I'm still well within budget, so whatever. Oh, and technically I've read this already, but it is on my October TBR because I wanted to read it, and the rest of the series as well. Okay, so then continuing nostalgia buys, I have 3 books here from booksforless.co.nz. If you want secondhand books online in New Zealand, they're a really great website. I'll link them down below actually. But firstly, from there I got Magic's Pawn by Mercedes Lackey. So this is the first book in the last Herald Mage trilogy, which is part of Mercedes Lackey's bigger Valdemar series that, again, is a book I found at that library and kind of got me into reading fantasy. And actually, the Valdemar series is the series for which I started exploring the adult section, because some of the books from the Valdemar series were put in the teen section and some of them were put in the adult section. I'm never sure what the logic around that was. But anyway, I think this might even have been the first Valdemar book I read, so I'm super excited to own it. I would love to own more of these Valdemar books, especially with this beautiful Jodie A. Lee art on the front, but I don't see them that often. I guess if you've never heard about the Valdemar series, this is a series where there is this kingdom and they have these magical white horses that will select the heralds, which are basically the people who serve royalty and go out and kind of keep peace in the land, and also sometimes they'll have magical abilities. Daniel's story is particularly tragic and traumatic, but also one I know that a lot of people really love, and I do too. That's not on my TBR though, because I've read it already, although at some point I'm going to attempt a Valdemar reread. I'm a little bit scared that I won't love those books anymore, but someday I'll do it. Then as well, just recently, I read The Reindeer People by Megan Lindholm, and I loved it, 5-star duology. And then, like magic, the secondhand books appeared, and they're in like really good condition. I think actually all of these books were $8, but I kind of split the shipping across them as well. So I'm thinking of this one as $10 and both of these as $11 each, which isn't too bad considering these are all books that I love. So The Reindeer People, did I say this was by Robin Hobb or Megan Lindholm? Either way, Megan Lindholm is a pen name for Robin Hobb, and this has like Robin Hobb's signature style, but also the books are quite short, which is quite nice because normally Robin Hood books are quite long. I've just realized I wasn't using my fancy mic, so hopefully there is an audio improvement right at this moment. Anyway, this book series, we're following this young woman who is the mother of this boy who is kind of autistic coded. He has a lot of difficulties with learning things and also with kind of fitting in with other people. So initially they're living with this one group of people, but they decide to leave, and they stumble across the Reindeer People, where they kind of find a place, but it's a little bit of a challenge still. Like not everybody is accepting of them. So there's a lot of like inter-community drama, but also some really traumatic things happening as well. Some characters in this that are just like horrible, despicable men that I hated. The ending, though, was pretty satisfying. Some of those men got what they deserved. Maybe it wasn't quite as happy of an ending as I would have hoped, but I mean, it's Robin Hobb, so that's probably what you'd expect. Anyway, these don't go on the TBR because I've already read them and 5-star love them. Then we have these 3 books. So firstly, My sister actually found these two in a little library and sent them through to me. So this is the second and third books in the Dragon Prince trilogy. I am still looking for the first book so that I can actually decide if I want to read this series, but also I know that if I want to read this series, I'm going to have to try and find the books secondhand because my library doesn't have them. So I said to my sister, yes, get them for me because $0 is a great price. Although I did pay her for shipping to send these down, but she sent them down with something else, so it didn't make a difference. Then as well, at our local secondhand bookshop, the one that's not a charity, it's like a proper business, I got Stronghold, which is the first book in the Dragon Star trilogy, which is like a follow-on trilogy set in the same world as the Dragon Prince trilogy. And I did already have the third book in that series, although not in the same size, but this was only $5, so I thought let's try and collect all these books even if I'm not quite managing to match the formats. Oops. So basically I am missing the first book in the first trilogy and then the second book in the second trilogy, but I think so far I've only spent $7, so that's not bad. These I'm not really putting on my TBR because I still don't have the first book in the series, but they're kind of floating around as a future reading project because if I was going to read this whole series, it would take a while. So I would have to make some time for it, which probably isn't going to be anytime soon, to be honest. Then, continuing on with gifted books, I have The Many-Coloured Land by Julian May. So this is the first book in the Saga of the Exiles, which is a 4-book series, although there's also like another kind of duology and a trilogy that all fit into the same world. So in this one, it starts out kind of set in futuristic times, but they discover this portal that allows people to travel back in time, one direction only, to like the Pliocene era. And so certain people, some of them criminals, and also I think some other people get sent back and they figure, it's so far back in time, you're not going to be able to cause any trouble, so that's fine. You go off and do that. But when they get there, they discover that there's more going on than they expected. So I have actually owned all the books in this series, like the biggest series, for a while, but I could never find this first book, except I did have a binder of the first 2 books, but it didn't match the rest of mine, so I was always a little bit annoyed about it. But then Dragon Rambles, who has a blog, I will leave it down below. She is a fellow New Zealander and obviously has better luck and better skill and I guess better access to secondhand bookshops, and she said she had a double of this anyway. So she sent it through to me and now I have a whole matching set. And I think this series, I might actually start my reread of it next year and like try and read the whole series over the year. And now I have a whole matching series to do that. So if you're watching this, Nicole, thank you very much. I'm very happy to finally have my hands on this. So I guess this is another one that's kind of on the TBR because I am planning to read it, but also I have already read it. So does that count as it being a TBR purchase? I'm not sure. The next one though, I'm counting as a gift, and that is Isles of the Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson. I'm counting this as a gift from past me because I bought this last year before I had set my book buying budget. So it's not included in any of the money I spent this year. So it's a gift from past me. We're not going to think about how much I spent on this book because I have already read it and I didn't really like it. And honestly, I don't think I'll be buying any more Sanderson's secret projects because I can't justify the cost given that, I guess I've had slightly more than 50% success rate, but I just think there's a lot of things about his writing style which is diverging from what I like. But anyway, this was fine and it is a really beautiful book. And what I didn't realize when I read this initially via ebook is some of the pages are black and some of them are white, and that fits in with the story. So it's a beautiful book. Look at it. So lovely. I'm happy to own it. Thanks past me for getting this for me, but also I didn't really like the story. So sad. I think that means that I bought 12 books, but only 2 of them are on my TBR, debatably this one and also some of the Dragon Prince ones, but we're not going to think about those. These are the ones that I kind of want to read in the near future, although will I get to them this year? I guess we'll see. Anyway, do let me know if you've read any of these books. I would love to chat with you about them down in the comments, or let me know, was your book buying in the last quarter out of control or in control? In control is better. Financial responsibility is still cool. It often doesn't seem like it on the bookish internet, but it really is. Anyway, do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.